So, funny enough, I was planning on doing a video saying the Celtics season was over before the Jaylen Brown news just broke, but I might as well just tack this on to a commentary that I've already done, to be honest. Jaylen is out for the rest of the season with a torn ligament in his left wrist. Now they might not even make it through the play-in tournament without Jaylen, so, yeah. Now, when it comes to torn ligaments in a wrist, it seems like the healing time is about 2 to 10 weeks, so I'm assuming this will not be a problem for Jaylen long term. This season's pretty much over. Their chances of getting the 5th seed are very low at this point. The Hawks have the tiebreaker on them. The Celtics would have to win their last 4 games. The Hawks and the Heat would probably have to lose all of their games remaining, or win 1 at the most. And even then, that would just put the Celtics in a round 1 matchup against the Knicks, and the Knicks are good. That would be a tough series, but that series is actually winnable, whereas Sixers, Nets, Bucks, no one is predicting the Celtics to have a chance in those series. This is all, of course, assuming the Celtics get through the play-in tournament, and with this team, listen, man, you want to predict they don't even make it? Who am I to say you're wrong? I mean, how many times have I seen this team down by 20-something points this year, taking a million years to get into offensive sets, not passing the ball around enough, defensive intensity comes and goes. Yeah, sure, some of it's bad luck. Kemba's health, Fournier missed time, Tatum played through a thing, whatever else. But still, you put this team in a... Well, as of right now, they'd play the Hornets, and I mean, they probably should win that game, but they also got blown out by the Hornets not too long ago. If they faced the Wizards, I think the Wizards would win that game because they would just have so much more energy than the walking in mud Celtics. Now, with a healthy Jaylen, there might have been a puncher's chance of them pulling off a crazy upset against the Nets or the Sixers or the Bucks, whoever they might end up facing in round 1, assuming they get past the play-in. Without Jaylen, though, I don't think there's any possibility. They're just not going to be able to score enough points. Anyway, to think about the offseason, I mean, I don't want to repeat just everything I've been saying. Like, I did the whole they should probably trade Kemba video, and I still believe that, even if Kemba, he still had, like, his 20-point performances and stuff, but, I mean, the guy can't go longer than, like, 3 games in a row, it seems, right now. Not only that, but do we have any sign that this isn't just going to keep getting worse as his contract goes along and he's making over $30 million a year? So if you could turn him into a good player, that would be great. You might have to give up picks to do it because I don't know who's going to want to take on that contract besides a couple teams. Like OKC would be the obvious one. The only other teams that I could think of who could be looking to take on money if you give them stuff, it could just be the Pistons and the Magic as the other teams. I mean, yeah, Cleveland is bad, but I don't really see a way you can have Kemba with Garland and Sexton, you know? And then I think in a perfect world, you're organizing a 3-team deal with Kemba. But even then, it's just like, how are you going to give the one team who's taking him on enough stuff to take on that contract and then have the other team taking back something to where you'll actually get a player in return for them? I mean, I don't know. It might have to be a really crazy move, but I think that's pretty much where this team is at. The other really interesting one is Marcus Smart, who was not as good defensively this season. I don't think it's even a conversation. He's not in the all-defense team this year, first or second team. And if the Celtics sense that it could be a downward trend for him, then, well, maybe. The other thing with Marcus is his extension is coming up after next season if they decide to hold on to him, and I would imagine he would want a little bit more money, if anything, just because the salary cap is going up. So that could cause a riff of some kind. I mean, he was already clearly in trade rumors during the season, and he was aware of it. We'll have to see with that. There's re-signing Fournier. And besides that, I think they should just get aggressive with something. I mean, I've already kind of talked about how between Tristan Thompson's contract, some of these smaller contracts, all of their picks, you could go for somebody. I mean, if it's like Tristan Thompson, Langford, Nesmith, 2 firsts, what is that getting you around the league? I don't know. And yeah, I know Nesmith has been better lately. It's just, listen, man, Tatum's 23, soon to be 24. Jaylen's 24, about to be 25. I'm kind of tired of waiting for all these young dudes to get good. And speaking of Tatum and Jaylen, I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The real doomsday scenario is that, well, Jaylen's got 3 years left on his contract, which means he might only have 1 year left until we start hearing, wait a minute, does Jaylen want out of Boston? And of course, you don't want that to be a thing, so it's going to make sense to have an aggressive offseason here. And as I look around the league and I try to find guys who aren't on crappy contracts that extend forever, I don't know, man. I mean, you want to take a flyer on Taurean Prince? I'm not really sure the Cavs see him as a must-keep guy, but I'm not really sure he's going to save the Celtics. As far as how we got here, besides just some bad luck with injuries and stuff, I mean, look, I think Fournier is a good consolation for losing Hayward. It's just they had to sit through a whole chunk of the season without getting anything in return for that trade exception. And as for Kemba, I mean, look, man, Terry Rozier is better than Kemba, and he's $20 million cheaper. And again, some of it's bad luck because it was an injury. I mean, at the time, people were pretty on board with the Kemba signing. I do think there were some people who were a little bit like, no, Kemba will just take shots away from Tatum and Jaylen, and that was not a problem at all. And I think most people were saying that the Rozier Hornets thing was an overpay, but, you know, this is the way that it swung, so you got to deal with it. Or Kemba will just bounce back, but it's looking pretty unlikely at this point. And now, just for the last minute here, I might as well do the Brad Stevens spiel as I always do. Because if you search the internet, and you probably don't even have to go that deep, you'll find somebody saying that the Stevens isn't the right coach or whatever, and I just don't agree with that at all. That's not to say that he doesn't deserve criticism about this season. I mean, you know, he went with the 2 big man lineup to open up the year, and honestly, that lineup wasn't as bad as some people made it out to be. I think they finished with a neutral net rating, but it was still a thing, and it was kind of weird. And some of the lack of passing compared to years past, on top of the inconsistencies on defense, of course, Stevens deserves some blame for that. But the guy still has so much positive leeway with his tenure on the Celtics. Like, I mean, how many playoff series have they won where they were the less talented team? It's quite a lot. And I know for some reason people, they hone in on like the Heat series, but it's like, dude, they lost to a really good team in a close 6 games. I mean, one of those games came down to literally one play. Another one was Tyler Hero hitting 30-foot bombs. Meanwhile, Hayward was hurt the whole time. Like, I don't know. I don't think that series was some like disastrous finish. And they also figured out the zone defense after game 2. I think their offensive rating in the last 4 games of that series was like 115. I mean, speaking of Miami, they've been a disappointment this year. They've had a lot of the same problems the Celtics have had. It happens, man. It's happening to Spoelstra right now. So yeah, that's it. Again, I'm going to end up saying all of this again when they're eliminated, but that's just how it goes.